Shalom Chaverim. Welcome. I want to first extend my thanks to our partner, Ron Lauder, Dan Diker, M.K. Shai Hermesh, and all of their colleagues at the WJC. Thank you very, very much for being our partner. Speaker of the Knesset, Ruvi Rivlin, the Minister of Public Diplomacy and Affairs of Israel, Yuli Edelstein, and to the many cabinet ministers and members of the Knesset who are joining us tonight and over the next several days. This conference, this consultation to be precise, is long overdue and in my view desperately needed. While each of us is here in our respective capacities as national parliamentarian, our common cause is captured by the simple phrase, Ahavat Yisrael, literally, love of Israel, meaning not just the state and the country and the land, but the concern and affection Jews have always shown for others over the ages and all around the world. When we hear about an attack on a synagogue or a cemetery anywhere around the world, our shared response is to want to come to the aid of the affected community, to ensure their safety and protection. When radicals and demagogues incite hatred and violence, whether against Jews or any other minority, our shared instinct is to stand up for tolerance and nonviolence and to defend the vulnerable and the weak. When we see Israel struggling with the intractable problems of peace and security, our national response is to lend a hand, to assist however we can. When we see pictures of Gilad Shalit, barely more than a boy 5 years ago, before his kidnapping, we know that he is also our son or our brother, and that his redemption from captivity is our duty as well. It is my hope that this conference, this consultation, will give us all an opportunity away from the votes and the caucuses and the whip counts and the local politics to really engage with some of the most important issues facing our international community, and specifically the state of Israel and the Jewish people, and to consider what we as a group can contribute. But I think at the heart of all these challenges, there is a common thread and a common threat. I don't believe that the attacks on Israel's right to exist and the efforts to derogate the acts of self-defense to that of war crimes or even crimes against humanity are actually rooted in a belief in international law or a principled evaluation of Israel's military operations. What I believe is really driving most of these claims is a deep-seated and stubborn refusal to see Jews as a people. This conceptual failure, whether rooted in anti-Semitism, which it is, or ignorance, which it is, leads to a refusal to accept Israel as a Jewish state or to accept that it, like every other normal state, has a fundamental right to self-defense. And this question of Jewish nationhood is entirely separate from those issues relating to the Palestinians' legitimate aspirations for their own independent state, or what shape or character that state should be. Many countries have unsettled borders. Many states could make improvements in human rights records. Many nations contain minorities in need of greater legal protection and advocacy for their interests. Many states have been compelled to use force to protect their people and their vital national interests. But it is only Israel, the one and only Jewish state, that is subjected to the humiliation of having its right to exist routinely questioned and the right of its people to be free from violence openly rejected. Only Israel is the permanent whipping boy of the United Nations. So we are faced with a paradox. While the anti-Semitism and discrimination that Jews have historically faced and in many places rightfully still continue to fear is based on the views of Jews as a people apart, The ongoing assault on Israel's legitimacy is built upon the idea that Jews are not a separate people and that are thus not entitled to self-determination. And there are other contradictions also worth considering. While Israel's armed forces have never been stronger, and Israel's economy has never been stronger, and Israel has reestablished its deterrence with Hezbollah and Hamas, and the frequency of suicide bombings has all but ceased, I would like to argue that in even some more important ways, Israel has never been less secure. Moreover, I'd suggest that Israel may be less secure in exactly those areas we may have considered before to be the least vulnerable. Israel's long-standing strategic deterrence is waning in efficacy. After a surprisingly successful international effort to impose sanctions on Iran and the welcome surprise of the Green Revolution, the Ayatollahs have strengthened their grip on power, and despite the sanctions are progressively, steadily moving toward their goal of being able to deploy nuclear arms. All those unacceptable lines in the sand keep getting washed away by an incoming nuclear tide. Israel's regional security environment is in flux. The alliance with Turkey and peace agreements with Egypt and Jordan that provided the foundation for the Middle East peace process either collapsed or collapsing are all under strain from the democratic revolutions of the Arab Spring. And Israel's military advantages for conventional war are being subtly undermined by asymmetric technologies like cheap rockets and the innovative use of international law as a shield for terrorists, as an effective political bludgeon against legitimate self-defense. And perhaps most critically, the global political tide seems to be turning decisively against Israel and may produce what Israeli Defense Minister Barak termed a diplomatic tsunami in September. Global frustrations and impatience with the peace process, already high, have been amplified by fears and the implications of the Arab Spring. Notwithstanding the full-blown peace offers from governments of Prime Minister Barak and Prime Minister Olmert, and Israel's unilateral withdrawal from Gaza by Prime Minister Sharon, and the unilateral settlement freezes by Prime Minister Netanyahu, the current impasse nonetheless has been laid at Israel's door. The Palestinians plan to take their case for recognition and statehood to the UN General Assembly, and that poses great danger for Israel. If this initiative were to succeed, or worse, to slip out of control, the results could be devastating. Israel could be exposed to unprecedented kinds of sanctions and pressures beyond the wildest hopes of even Israel's worst enemies. And in addition to these challenges, we face another more intimate one. How do we as Jewish parliamentarians from all over the world and every part of the political spectrum, come together to protect and advance our common interests? Our task over the next 2 days is not just to detail the problems that face us individually as Jewish legislators and collectively as Jewish leaders, but to figure out, with all our possible differing approaches, how can we best coordinate our efforts? How can we share support for certain policies? And of equal importance, what should we do about our disagreements? I don't think it will, nor should it be easy to answer these questions. And while I expect our discussions will be civil, more importantly, I hope that they will be rigorous and unrestricted by an artificial sense of convention or any kind of imagined political correctness. The stakes are indeed too high. In light of the challenges we face, and with a nod to the sage Hillel, I would offer 3 more questions for us to consider. If not us, then who? If not here, then where? And if not this, then what? I'm glad to be among you, and I'm eager that we begin to try to answer all of these questions. And I thank you all for embracing this opportunity to be a part of this very important consultation.